In tonight's edition, a new pathway for aged care workers to gain permanent residency. More details about short-term Stream 482 visa holders' pathways to PR. A signature on the UK Free Trade Agreement soon means a wave of Brits are coming. Increased funding to the Palm Visa scheme. Migration reforms to bring a smaller Australia, so we're told. New figures on visa processing times and lodgements, and more. I'm Carl Conrad and welcome to Australian Immigration News, proudly brought to you by Australian Immigration Law Services right here in Sydney. There was good news on Friday as the Immigration Minister announced the new labour agreement for the aged care sector. Most importantly, this can lead to permanent residency as well. A long overdue incentive indeed. He said employers can apply for the aged care labour agreement immediately. These applications, as well as the associated visa applications, will be processed by the Department of Home Affairs as a matter of priority. These labour agreements work through the 482 visa in the labour agreement stream, and of course it usually means a lot of red tape. However, let's give them a chance to reduce it. The income will no doubt not be set at the new TSMIT of $70,000, and there can also be concessions on English and hopefully for many an age concession of up to 55. This will also open the pathway for permanent residency using the 186 employer sponsored visa under the labour agreement stream. The Minister has already explained it will only take 2 years before access to permanent residency will be available. Now, this announcement is all great news except for one thing. Employers will also have to get agreement from the unions, according to an article in The Australian. Well, it sounded like a good idea, but with the unions being involved, this announcement is looking problematic. Let's see how things pan out. Also on Friday, the Immigration Department released a new page with more information on how the 482 short-term visa holders will be able to apply for their permanent residency and how the new TSMIT fits into the scheme. This means the 186 visa regulations will be altered to allow all 482 visa holders to apply. The next part is significantly important. We will reduce the eligibility for the TRT stream from 3 years to 2 years employment with the sponsoring employer. This means all 482 visa holders in the short-term stream and medium to long-term stream will benefit from this change. In addition to this, another important change for the 482 short-term stream visa holders. To facilitate these pathways, the government is also removing the limits on the number of short-term stream TSS visa applications that a visa holders can make in Australia. As most short-term visa holders know, there is a 2 visa limit in most cases, and their 3rd visa application needs to be made outside of Australia. This change is very important for many visa holders who may be facing the end of their second 482 visa before the end of the year. Now, in relation to the increase of the TSMIT, it gets a little confusing, so I will try to make it clearer. Firstly, the rise of the TSMIT does not affect current 482 visa holders. Secondly, the TSMIT is tied to the nomination application of the business, not to the visa holder. If the nomination is already approved before the 1st of July, then the visa holder does not need to meet the new TSMIT salary requirements in their new visa application. And finally, those nominations lodged and not approved before the 1st of July will have to meet the new TSMIT level. They did this last time when they raised the TSMIT a long time ago. This means those nominations lodged for the 482 and 186 visas but left undecided by the department on the 1st of July will most likely need to arrange a new employment contracts for their nominee if their application salary was below $70,000. This is a real pain, particularly for those 186 visas still yet to be processed, and the fact it often takes at least 12 months to be finalized. Overall, however, despite the rise of the TSMIT and the headaches it creates, the new access to PR for the short-term Stream 482 visa holders is great news indeed. It is now even better with the reduction of time from the old 3 years to 2 years of having worked for your sponsoring employer. Remember, we are still yet to see the legislation, so until we do, none of this is set in stone. According to the PM on the telly on Friday, the UK Free Trade Agreement will be signed off by the Brits by the end of the month. Along with all the associated economic benefits will come the visa advantages for both countries. The most eagerly awaited components will be the 35 years of age cutoff for the working holiday visa. However, they do not specify when that will start, except to say that 2 years from the start of the agreement. support for the recognition of professional qualifications between Australia and the UK, and increased collaboration between accreditation of regulatory bodies. This will make it easier for teachers and nurses, for example, to become recognised in Australia, we hope, along with other professionals. New opportunities for early career UK graduates to undertake short-term placements, secondments or intercorporate transfers in Australia for up to 12 months under the Innovation and Early Careers Skills Exchange pilot. Spurred on from this success, the PM will also be heading to the EU to discuss further future opportunities, as the Financial Review article highlighted. In Tuesday's budget, it is expected that there will be a huge increase in the assistance for Pacific Islanders. As part of that package, an expansion of the Pacific Australia Labour Mobility Scheme, known as PALMS, will occur with numerous changes. Stay tuned for more information on this when it is released. No doubt we'll see many more pictures like this in the media of politicians enjoying themselves in the Pacific Islands. And speaking of the budget, this Tuesday is set for the release of our Australian federal budget details. According to the Sydney Morning Herald this week, perhaps we can expect migration reforms to result in a smaller Australia. However, most Australians will not feel Australia is getting any smaller at all, with over 400,000 temporary residents expected to hit our shores by the end of June. This is well over the 235,000 predicted last year. On top of this, another 340,000 are expected the year after, but who knows, since the last prediction was so inaccurate, most probably will be another 400,000 plus. So finding a car spot at the beach or at your local cafe may get a little harder, but the number one concern at the moment is the lack of rental properties. Now, Claire O'Neil, our Home Affairs Minister, was quick to point out that migration is not causing the problem.
Our country faces genuine and significant challenges providing safe, affordable housing for Australians. These problems are not caused by migrants. There are hundreds of thousands of fewer migrants in the country now than there would have been had we not shut the borders due to COVID. And yet we are still facing these very substantial difficulties with housing.
So there you go, it's official, migration is not to blame. However, that comment got little coverage in the national media. Let's take a look at this recent ABC report by an extremely well-respected finance reporter.
Here are 4 related statistics. This is the number of long-term rentals available across Australia right now. This one is the number of new migrants coming into the country every day. This number is the number of short-term holiday rentals available across Australia, according to University of Queensland researcher Thomas Sigler, mostly on Airbnb, and it's about 6 times the number of long-term rentals. And this number is the median capital city increase in rent over the past 12 months, and it's triple the very high inflation rate.
However, instead of examining why we have 6 times the number of houses on short-term rentals compared to the long-term rentals, and whether this is actually in the national interest, we get the same old conclusion.
But the real cause of the rental crisis is immigration, now running at levels that have never been seen before.
Now, I could go on about this quite a bit longer, but I'll let you draw your own conclusions from these figures. And of course, there are many supporters of a bigger Australia in the business world, as highlighted in the Financial Review this week. The solution to our inflation woes may in fact be solved by a higher migration number. The head of the Macquarie Bank is quoted as saying in The Australian, "Population growth immigration has picked up again. This is going to drive underlying growth and shield Australia from the extent of the downturn peers are going to have." Well, let's hope so. Now, the increase of the TISMET has sent shockwaves through many industries, particularly in hospitality. Many hospitality industry leaders were quoted in this article in The Australian as saying this new TISMET figure of 70,000 is unrealistic in the regional areas of Australia. The $70,000 figure may in fact be okay for the city areas as it was designed for, but not necessarily for regional areas. It is feared that the regions that need the overseas labour the most will now be isolated from the system altogether. Now let's take a look for any improvements in the processing times that were issued just this week. It was on the 18th of March was the last time we had a look, and let's compare that to the February figures too. Remember, they say these times are for 90% of applications. A more realistic processing time for the 189 invitations, a slightly better time for the 190 visa applications, but the poor 300, 309 N 489 and 476 applicants are still seeing ridiculous processing times. This really needs to change ASAP. In a recent FOI release, we can see the number of visas still on hand at the end of February 2023 since July 2022. Still quite a number to be processed, nearly 100,000 just in these skilled visas alone. Now to the visas granted. The interesting part of this is the high number of 887 visas processed in the month of February, just short of 9,000, which is a pretty good effort. Now looking at the number of visas lodged, you can see after December 2022 round of invitations, the 189 visa, there were about 17,000 visas lodged within the required 60 days, which is only about half of the invitations that were actually sent out. So will there be another 189 invitation round? According to these figures, there should be, but these days you never know what the department is up to. And there's also been an update till the end of April of the 190 and 491 nominations handed out by the state and territories. Finally, it seems after our critical edition of New South Wales, they are actually doing something with 3,733 issued so far for the 491 visa. Well, it's been a very busy week and I still need to write about the calibration of the points test and what we may expect. Stay tuned for that edition during the week. Last week's video has set a record high of over 100,000 views in just a week. The one released just on Thursday is also on the same trajectory. Thank you all for your interest in what we publish here and the fantastic heartening comments that you write in. It will keep me motivated for another 20 years to keep on filming. I may need a few teeth and sound a bit croaky, but I'll survive. As always, take care out there and I'll see you next time. So bye for now.